All right, let's jump right into this explainer and figure out why the absolute holy grail of lower body exercises, the squat, can sometimes feel just, well, impossibly frustrating. Whether you're chasing down a massive new personal record or you're literally just trying to move a bit better in your day-to-day life, the barbell squat is a total staple. But if you're like a lot of lifters out there, you might feel like you're just banging your head against a wall trying to make your form look exactly right.
It's literally a question that plagues gyms all over the world. You know the drill. We spend hours upon hours stretching, foam rolling our lives away, tweaking every little detail of our form, only to drop down and feel this awful pinching or even sharp pain in our hips or knees. We always blame ourselves, right? We think, oh, I'm just not flexible enough. But honestly, what if the problem isn't your effort at all? What if you're chasing this textbook perfect ideal that fundamentally does not fit your body?
Because here is the real truth. Your inability to hit that picture-perfect, toes pointing straight forward, ass-to-grass squat, it might actually be hardwired right into your bone structure. Just like Dr. Aaron Horschig points out here, the whole idea that every single person should squat with the exact same stance is just a complete myth. Your perfect squat is uniquely yours.
So, Section 1. The myth of perfect form. How hip anatomy dictates mechanics.
What's super fascinating here is how the actual physical orientation of your hip socket, your acetabulum, literally limits where your legs can comfortably go. The research shows us that there are really distinct variations in how our hip sockets are angled. If your hip sockets face mostly forward, a narrower stance is absolutely going to be your sweet spot. But if you have laterally opening sockets, trying to force your feet close together, you're basically asking for a bone-on-bone collision. Your body naturally wants a much wider stance with your toes pointed outwards.
And hey, it's not even just the sockets we have to think about, it's the thigh bone itself. There's this thing called femoral anteversion, which is basically a natural inward twist built right into your femur. If your femur has this natural twist, and you try to force your toes out into that ideal wide powerlifting stance, you're gonna hit a hard, bony block. You'll feel this pinch that literally no amount of mobility work or stretching can ever fix. Why? Because you are literally fighting your own skeleton. No way you're gonna win that one.
But here's the good news. You do not need an X-ray to figure this all out. You can test your own anatomical alignment right at home using these quick steps. It's called Craig's test. By finding exactly where that bony notch on your outer hip feels the most prominent, you can discover the natural rotation of your femur. It's an awesome trick to help you find the exact stance your body was quite literally built for.
Moving on to Section 2, high bar versus low bar, choosing your weapon.
Okay, so once you've dialed in your stance, you got to figure out where to actually put the barbell. And these two variations completely alter your center of gravity, which in turn dictates exactly which muscles take the brunt of the load. The high bar squat sits way up on top of the traps. It forces you to stay super upright, which makes it an incredibly quad-dominant movement. It's absolutely perfect for Olympic weightlifters. The low bar squat, on the other hand, pins the bar a bit further down your back, right across those rear deltoids. To keep that bar centered over your midfoot, you naturally have to lean forward a bit, and that shifts the dynamics of the lift entirely.
And this perfectly explains why powerlifters are so obsessed with the low bar squat. It's a total game changer for utilizing the massive muscles of your posterior chain to move the absolute maximum amount of weight safely. In fact, a 2020 study showed that eccentric muscle activation in your glutes and hamstrings is remarkably higher when you low bar squat compared to high bar. By shifting your hips back, you take a ton of stress right off the knees and recruit the biggest, strongest muscles in your body to do all the heavy lifting.
All right, let's jump into Section 3, fixing common squat mistakes, patching mechanical leaks.
So now that we've covered how your anatomy dictates your stance and how bar placement shifts the actual load, let's look at the form breakdowns you actually can control. You've definitely seen this at the gym, or let's be honest, probably felt it yourself, your heels coming right off the ground. Squatting on your tiptoes is a massive mechanical leak. It takes your powerful glutes completely out of the equation, dumps all the weight onto your quads, and places some really dangerous, unnecessary stress right on your knee and ankle joints.
The fix for this is actually surprisingly simple. Most of the time, those rising heels, just a symptom of super tight calves. Taking a minute to simply stretch your calves before you ever get under the bar, and then keeping a strong mental cue to physically drive the floor away through your heels can patch this leak immediately and get your glutes firing the way they're supposed to.
Now what about when your knees wobble or kind of cave inward toward each other? This is called knee valgus, and man, it is a huge red flag. It places some really extreme lateral stress on the joint, especially during the absolute hardest part of the lift, when you're ascending right out of the hole.
But here's the crazy secret about wobbling knees. It's usually not even a knee problem at all. It's actually a symptom of weak hips and glutes that are failing to stabilize the femur. If you keep your toes pointed in your own natural alignment, and you add in some accessory work to strengthen those hips, you'll ensure your knees stay tracking safely right over your ankles.
Another really common mistake is how you actually start the squat. If the very first movement you make is shooting your knees forward, well, your center of gravity gets thrown entirely off balance. You basically end up pushing all the weight right onto your toes.
The easiest fix? Just imagine there's a chair right behind you. By simply thinking about sitting back into that invisible chair, you engage your hips first. And yeah, for sure, your knees are eventually going to come over your toes when you get deep into the hole. That's normal. But initiating the whole movement by sitting back protects your joints from the get-go and keeps that barbell perfectly tracked right over your midfoot.
And finally, Section 4. The science of squat gear. Do knee sleeves actually help? Let's shift gears for a second and talk about equipment. We all know knee sleeves keep your joints nice and warm, but do stiffer, thicker sleeves actually make you any stronger? Well, a super fascinating 2026 study published in the Journal of Functional Morphology and Kinesiology actually set out to answer this. They tracked athletes through an incremental back squat test, specifically analyzing the force-velocity power profile of lifters wearing low-density versus high-density sleeves.
So looking at the results, they're pretty nuanced. As you can see, the high-density sleeves definitely yielded slightly higher raw numbers across the board. We're talking almost 100 more newtons of max force and nearly 90 more watts of max power. But, and this is a big but, the differences were not statistically significant in a strict academic sense. You can see those p-values are sitting well about 0.05.
So, what's the real takeaway here? Well, you kind of have to look at it through two different lenses. Academically speaking, the sleeve density didn't fundamentally change the force-velocity curve. But practically, actually scratch the academic side for a second. Because practically, researchers found that the high-density sleeves crossed a specific clinical threshold, 0.2 times the standard deviation. Meaning, yes, they do provide a slight, highly practical mechanical advantage. That increased material stiffness gives a tiny, real-world edge for lifters who are pushing their absolute limits and looking for the maximum possible force transmission.
Ultimately, getting the absolute most out of your squat is about looking at the whole picture. Whether it's discovering your own natural anatomical stance, choosing the bar placement that aligns with your specific goals, fixing those sneaky mechanical leaks, or even utilizing the right gear to give yourself a clinical edge, it's time to stop fighting your own body. So, I'll leave you with this to think about the next time you step under the bar. Are you squatting for your anatomy or someone else's?